Clark, and welcome to my presentation on Reboots and Remakes. The films I've decided to do my presentation on are Spider-Man from 2002 and The Amazing Spider-Man from 2012. Both films were made in the US. In the 2002 movie, there were examples of civilians being in danger and an element of terror. This could link with the terror threats in the US at the time of the production of the film. Obviously, 9/11 in 2001 would be the main threat that comes to mind, as well as the Oklahoma bombings in June of the same year. That was also the situations where civilians were put into danger. The Green Goblin, the bad guy in the film, does also put civilians into danger. The Green Goblin, who's again the bad guy, is a gone wrong electronical experiment. There was a fear of technology at the time. For example, the Y2K thing going on into the new millennium may have inspired the decision to actually choose the Green Goblin as the bad guy. In 2012, arguably people were more concerned about chemicals. In 2012, there was a chemical plant explosion in Hungary, which impacted people in Tennessee when toxic waste washed up on the shores there. That was and then in 2010, there was a chemical explosion in Texas Tech University. The lizard uses chemicals to try and turn everyone into lizards like him at the end of the movie, so that would be the link to The Amazing Spider-Man. The budget for the 2002 Spider-Man was $140 million. It made $821 million. 100 in its first week in the box office, and it's the 42nd highest grossing film of all time and the most successful film to be based on a comic book. The fact that the 2012 Amazing Spider-Man had a larger budget of $230 million may have meant that the studio had more control and wanted to attempt to make more money out of it, perhaps making it more toyetic, which may have moved people away from the film and make them dislike it more. However, you have to take into consideration inflation, so $230 million isn't as much as it would sound. It would be less for the same amount in 2002. When you look into who they were targeting, they were obviously targeting Spider-Man fans. But outside of that common sense, I think they were both targeting different people. The 2002 version was targeting people that read the comics, whereas that comes across with its more comic-y feel, with its lighter colours, as well as its very closely matched story. The 2012 Amazing Spider-Man, however, due to its darker tones and grade, I think it was trying to appeal to people that had maybe seen films such as Batman Dark Knight, which had been successful previously, and tried to mirror that so people could see what they were more used to seeing from a superhero film rather than seeing a comic book adaptation of it. On the marketing side, the 2012 film unsurprisingly had a bigger campaign. Due to the emergence of things like Facebook and YouTube, the film had the opportunity to go viral. In 2002, Facebook and YouTube didn't exist, and unsurprisingly again, people used the internet more in 2012 than they did in 2002. The 2002 film did, however, end up with quite a big story around its campaign because of the inclusion of the Twin Towers in one of its trailers. It was meant to be in the film, and that's the scene where Spider-Man catches a helicopter in his webs in between the Twin Towers. After 9/11, Columbia Pictures and Sony took the shot out of the film. People noticed this because it was in the trailer, as I mentioned. A shot of Spider-Man hanging onto a flagpole with a huge American flag on it was added to future trailers and featured at the end of the film as well, in response to the attacks. There was also a poster which features Spider-Man on the Twin Towers, which you can see now, which they then stopped showing after 9/11. This helps get the film a lot more coverage than it otherwise may have gotten. The 2012 film had a viral campaign and more people could watch the trailer due to the emergence of YouTube. This also prompted Sony to make a longer special edition trailer to build the hype type thing towards the release of the film. That trailer went on for about 4 minutes. So it's not that perhaps the audience has changed much, but the technology available to the audience to find out information about the film has changed. I mean, there are different marketing opportunities to explore for both films. I feel I should mention the representation of Peter Parker, who is Spider-Man when he's not in his costume. There was criticism that Andrew Garfield's character in the 2012 one was not geeky enough and too cool. Tobey Maguire's character, however, in 2002 was. I think this is due to the fact that the perception of what a geek has changed over the last decade. In 2002, you were weird if you knew how to make a website. You stood out. Now, however, since Facebook and YouTube and the success and money around that, as Garfield said, the sort of geeky people now rule the world. So I sympathise with the problem of trying to make the secret identity character that's supposed to be nerdy and alone because he's clever, a perception when the comics were written and in 2002 was still the case, when the criteria is changed to what that is and no longer means what it originally did. So you can't change Peter Parker and you've got to change the perception as well. So I think it's criticism that they had, but I don't think there was much they could do about it. In terms of the distribution, I believe that The Amazing Spider-Man suffered due to the time that it was made. In 2002, if you wanted to go and see a film before it was out on video or DVD, you had to go to the cinema. In 2012, the opportunity was there to watch the film online for free, although illegal. That obviously directly impacts the box office figures. In 2012, there was also the opportunity to buy a much better than video DVD or Blu-ray DVD or disc, and take it and watch it at home on much improved home cinema systems, or even on download systems like Sky and Netflix. In 2002, going to the cinema was more of an occasion, so more people would have gone. Also taking into consideration that the new 12 rating, it was one of the first couple of 12 rating films from the BBFC, so that may have encouraged people to go and watch the film that maybe otherwise wouldn't have in that age bracket. In my opinion, The Amazing Spider-Man was only made for financial benefit. At the time that it was made, it was only 10 years from the original one in 2002, and the previous trilogy had only finished 5 years before The Amazing Spider-Man was made in 2012. The Amazing Spider-Man features a lot of action, so the films that could have influenced it around that time would be potentially James Bond movies, which are very, very popular as well and had a lot of action in. And the demand for superhero films was very large at the time, with the success of the Dark Knight trilogy and the launch of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well around that time. You can also tell that they've taken a artistic approach to that film from the Dark Knight, which is a much darker toned film, as you can see in the comparison between the two villains. Sony also had to do something to keep interest in Spider-Man, a character that they'd bought after the success of the 2002 movie. The dark look, obviously comes from the Dark Knight, I reckon. So Sony had to keep people interested in Spider-Man because otherwise they'd lose their investment. So that might be why they released another film so quickly after the previous trilogy had ended. Finally, we're going to look into what the punters thought of the film. If you were involved with The Amazing Spider-Man, then look away now. It's a resounding win for the 2002 Spider-Man when fans' opinions are concerned. It may be due to the fact that there were more superhero films around at the time of The Amazing Spider-Man, and as I just mentioned, marketing may have actually made the film too predictable to watch from the trailer. Sony's 4-minute trailer for The Amazing Spider-Man showed, barring a couple of cutaways and a wide-angle shot, almost the entire first scene, something which must be more exciting when you don't know what's going to happen. From a marketing point of view, that's good, because people would have been gripped by that, they'd have enjoyed it, thought the trailer was awesome, so they'd have really wanted to go and see the movie, so people would have gone to watch it. But then when you go to the cinema to watch it, ultimately you've already seen it, so you're going to end up disappointed when you see the finished product. I'm going to wrap up with my opinion, and it completely disagrees with what everybody else seems to think. I prefer the 2012 iteration. When I look at why, I think it's because it's what I'm more used to from a superhero film. Without getting all nostalgic and saying that things were better in the good old days, I can relate to it more. The 2002 film, however, is one of the reasons that filmmaking interests me. I remember when that film came out, I used to be amazed that if you put a camera on its side and crawled across the floor, it made it look like you were climbing up a wall. However, I was obviously about 4 at that time, and when I was watching the film at that time, maybe I still see the 2002 version through the eyes of 4-year-old James, and maybe that doesn't make me appreciate what I'm actually watching. The Amazing Spider-Man for me, as I said, is more relatable. Obviously based at high school for Peter Parker. I was at high school in 2012, so I could relate to that, whereas in 2002 school was still a very new concept to me, and high school seemed a world away. They're both great films. Although I prefer the less successful one and the one that less people like, I definitely understand why people prefer the 2002 version. But here's hoping that they don't try and do it again in 2022.